Hey guys, these notes are for factoring when a is greater than 1. Our essential question is, how can I rewrite a trinomial into the product of two binomial factors? I'm going to be right honest with you that this process is pretty much the exact same as when factoring when a is 1. So if you go through a few of these problems and you're like, okay, I think I got it, then you can go ahead and try to do the rest yourself. I am going to go through all of the examples in the notes because again, it's good practice, so if you would like to continue that, then that would be awesome. Alright, so vocab. Our only vocab word is our standard form of a quadratic. So anytime we're factoring, we want it to be in standard form. And so standard form of a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. And we're going to be seeing this in Unit 7 as well, so please get used to seeing that form. If we forgot what a quadratic is, that is basically one of those graphs that's like a parabola. Remember, it's like a U shape. Okay. And again, a, b, and c are just numbers. Okay, they're just plain numbers. So if I ask you, what's c here? Then you're like, oh, -3. What's a here? Oh, 5. Okay, it's not 5x, it's not 5x squared, it's just 5. Alright, so first, before we get into factoring when a is greater than 1, we're going to review factoring when a is 1. Okay, so again, so I always check for a GCF first. So I have 3 terms here, and I can't factor out a GCF, so I can go ahead and start. Okay, now the number that goes into that top section up here, remember this is called the AC method. So you're going to take your A and multiply it by your C. So what is our A here? Our A here is 1, right? Our B is -1, and our C is -56, okay? Now, A times C here would be -56, and you're like, well, Miss Bowie, it's just the last number. That's correct. That's only because we're multiplying by 1. But if that number wasn't a 1, then it would be different, okay? And then, I'll make that blue. So we have -56, and then the number that we have at the bottom is -1, which is this one here. Now remember, we're trying to split the -1, the middle term, into 2 different terms. And that's why we have the -1 down there. That's the whole reason for doing the AC method. So I'm going to go over here and list all the factors of -56. I already know what the answer would be, so I'm just going to list like a few of them. So let's say 2 times 20, or -2 times 28, 2 times -28, and then we have 8 times -7, and then -8 times 7. Okay, there are more than this, but I know if I look at, after you write down each factor, you should probably look at see, does it add up to -1? So this last one that I wrote actually adds up to -1. So we want -8 times 7, which is -56, and -8 plus 7 is -1. So -8 and +7 are my two like special numbers that I'm going to use to split up my middle term. So again, as we have stated, your x squared doesn't change, the number on the outside here. Let's do red. No, sorry, I'm trying to decide what color I want to do. Pink. Okay, x squared doesn't change, and then -56 doesn't change. The only thing we're changing here is that middle term. That's going to split up, and we're going to use those terms of these two numbers that we found to help us. So that's going to be -8x and +7x. Okay. Again, it does not matter the order that you write that. So if you want to write the 7 first, that is okay. Then from here, I do factor by grouping. So my first 2 terms, my GCF is an x. Okay, so I have x minus 8 left over in the parentheses. And then my second half, I have my GCF is a +7. So I have a +7, and then I have x minus 8 left over. Now your check for yourself is like, are my parentheses matching? They do match, so I have x +7 and then x minus 8. Alright, those are my 2 factors. Okay, if I wanted to check, I would double distribute. Alright, number 2, we have 4x squared minus 20x minus 24. Okay, first thing you always do is check for a GCF. And I do have one in this case. It is 4. Okay, you're not always going to have a GCF, but sometimes you will. So you factored out the 4, so you put that on the outside of the parentheses, and you have x squared minus 5x minus 6. Okay? All right, so once I've done that, then I can check. Well, you always want to check to make sure, is this part actually GCF factored out? And you look, okay, I can't pull out another number, so that is my GCF, is just 4. And then I'm going to go and pretend like that 4 isn't there and just treat it like a regular trinomial. So I do 1 times negative 6, which gives me negative 6 on the top. And then I have negative 5 on the bottom, because that's my middle term. And then I need to list my factors and figure out what two numbers are going to multiply and add up to negative 5. So we have negative 1 times 6, negative 6 times 1, negative 2 times 3, 3 times negative 2. Okay? Now, I need to look. So the numbers that are going to add up to make negative 5 are going to be negative 6 and positive 1. Okay? So negative 6 and positive 1 multiply to get negative 6 and add to get negative 5. So I'm going to leave the 4 out there. You're just going to leave it alone for now. It's still out there. Okay? Remember, your x squared stays the same and your negative 6 stays the same, but now we have negative 6x plus 1x. Again, we're splitting that up into 2. All right, once you do that, then you do your whole factoring by grouping. Again, just pretend the 4 isn't there for now. So we have x times x minus 6, because x is our GCF here. And then our GCF for the next part is just 1. So we have plus 1, and then we have x minus 6. Again, my parentheses do match. I still have the 4 out there. Now, my new parentheses are going to be x plus 1 and x minus 6. So those are my factors. And then I can't forget the 4, so I'm just going to slap that on the outside. You don't want to distribute the 4 in, because remember, factoring is the opposite of distribution. So distributing it in would just reverse all of the hard work we've just done. So do not distribute it back in. So this would be your final answer. You have your factors there. Okay? All right, so let's move on to when a is greater than 1. What's different? Not really that much. So again, first step you always do, check for a GCF. Do I have one? I do not. So again, you're going to do AC method. A times C, okay? So let's identify our A, B, and C here. So A is going to be what here? It's 5. B is 8, and C is negative 4, okay? So AC method, A times C, right? 5 times negative 4. That's going to give me negative 20. That's the number that goes up there. Now, again, what's the whole point of doing this AC method? I'm trying to split the middle term into 2 parts. So I still want the 8 down there. And you're like, whoa, where did that negative 20 come from again? Okay, let's go back and look. Where did the negative 56 come from here? And you're like, well, it's the last term. And I said, no, it's A times C, which is 1 times negative 56. This 1 here times negative 56. So you're just multiplying your A times your C. So you have negative 20. And then you would treat it like normal. So pretty much nothing different, except that A is no longer 1. It is now a number. So we need to list factors of 20. That's 1 times negative 20, 20 times negative 1, 4 times negative 5, 5 times negative 4, 2 times negative 10, 10 times negative 2. Okay. I need to add up to positive 8, so that's going to be this guy. 8 minus 2 gives me positive 8. So I have 10 and negative 2. Again, when I did the factoring earlier, I'm just trying to split up that middle term. So I have 10x plus 10x. Whoops, what am I doing? I have positive 10x and negative 2x. And then those outside terms stay the same. So 5x squared is still there and negative 4 is still there. Okay? And now I'm just going to do like I normally do and factor out my GCF for factor by grouping. Now my greatest common factor here is actually 5x. So I have 5x on the outside, and on the inside I have x plus 2. Alright, and then over here I have my GCF is negative 2, because that third term is negative. So we have negative 2. We have positive x plus 2. Okay, and so my answer is going to be 5x minus 2, and then x plus 2. Okay, you always want to check to make sure those parentheses match, to make sure you got it correct. But just to be sure, I'm going to double distribute to check. 5x times x is 5x squared. 5x times 2 is plus 10x. Negative 2x, negative 4. So that's going to be 5x squared. I have like terms. Which is going to give me positive 8x minus 4. Does that match what I started with? Yes, it does. So I did number 1 correctly. Now, if you're like, well, this is super easy, this is the same thing as yesterday, go ahead and try number 2 on your own. You can pause the video if you need to. Okay? So, again, always check for a GCF first. I do not have one in this case, so I'm going to go ahead and create my x. Now, the number that goes in the top, remember, is a times c. So it's going to be 3 times 7, which is 21. And then the number in the middle is going to go at the bottom, which is 22. Okay? So now I'm going to list the factors of 21. So positive 21. So that's 1 times 21, and negative 1 times negative 21, negative 3 times negative 7, 3 times 7. And I want one of these to add and match to make positive 22. So that's going to be 1 and 21, because positive 1 plus positive 21 is 22. So 21 and 1, or 1 and 21, whatever order you want to do. Promise it works. All right, so again, 3x squared is going to stay the same. Okay, I don't know why I wrote that line there. Okay, and then the plus 7 is going to stay the same. The only thing that's going to change is our plus 21x and our plus 1x. And then you do factor by grouping. 3x. Okay, I am going faster because, again, this is pretty much the same. So if we're still struggling, please come and see me. Oh, I forgot to put the 1 there. 3x plus 1, x plus 7. All right. Okay, and then moving on to number 3. Again, always check for a GCF. Don't have one. So I'm going to put, the number I put on the top is going to be negative 140 because I'm taking 4 times negative 35. Okay, and then I have negative 4 in the bottom. Alright, so this number is kind of big, so we're going to use our calculator for this one. So I already went over this process in the other notes. But you're going to put in the first line y1 equals number over x, and then y2 is going to be number over x plus x. Okay? In this case, what number are we trying to factor? We're trying to factor negative 140. So we're going to do negative 140 over x, and then in the second line, do negative 140 over x plus x. So I'm not even using the negative 4 here. Okay? Once I type these in, I'm going to do second graph. Okay? And then you should see a list that says x, y1, y2. Okay? Now, what is my goal here? I'm trying to find two numbers that multiply to negative 140, but add to negative 4. So I'm looking for a negative 4 over here in the y2 column, okay? So you might have to do some scrolling, but you should end up with you should end up with either 10 and negative 14 or negative 14 and 10. I can't really remember the order. I don't have my calculator on me right now. But you should end up with something like that. Again, depending on your calculator, it could say something different. So I'm going to have positive 10 and negative 14. Those two numbers multiply to negative 140 and add to negative 4. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this. So I have 4x squared, and then I have the plus 10x minus 14x, and then I have the minus 35 still. So no, those two terms on the ends don't change. Again, factor GCF out, do factor by grouping. That's going to be 2x on both of those. So I have 2x plus 5 left over. Over here, my GCF is negative 7. That's going to give me positive 2x plus 5. And parentheses match, so I did that correctly. Okay, so those are my two factors. Okay, so this one was a bigger number, so I used the calculator to help me with this one. All right, moving on to number 4. again, first thing you always check for is a GCF, and I actually do have one in this case. It's actually going to be 10, so I'm going to factor out a 10. Now you treat it just like you do when A is not 1. You put it on the outside, and then you factor the 10 out. Okay? And then you just pretend like that 10 isn't there while you're doing your whole process. You'll bring it back later, but for now, we're going to forget about it. So, we're going to draw our X. Now, what number is going to go in the top? It's going to be our A times our C. So our A here is 5, and our C is negative 9. So that's going to be negative 45. Okay, that's where that number comes from. And then we have negative 12 down here. Okay, so negative 45. Well, I know that negative 9 times 5 works. 9 times negative 5. 3 times negative 15. Negative 3 times 15. Okay, there's some more, but I actually only need these. So I want to look which one of these adds to make negative 12. This third one will add to make negative 12. 3 plus negative 15. So I'm going to have 3 and negative 15 here. Again, I'm going to split that middle term up. Again, I'm going to, and then, I keep saying it again. Remember, that 10 is going to stay out there. I'm not going to worry about them for now. 5x squared minus 9. And then I'm using the plus 3x minus 15x. Okay? And then I do factor by grouping. So I have that here. I have, the most I can take out is an x. So I have x, and then I have 5x plus 3. And then on the second part, I can take out a negative 3. So I have negative 3 on the outside. We have 5x plus 3 on the inside. Don't forget about that 10 that's already out there. And I'm going to rewrite my parentheses. So I have x minus 3, 5x plus 3, and then I have the 10 just out there. And that is my final answer. Okay. And then number 5 and number 6 are actually kind of like review problems, but again, you always want to check, do I have a GCF? In this case, I do. It is going to be x. And so I take out the x, and I have 5 plus 7x. Now, in the parentheses right here, do I have a trinomial still? I don't. I just have a binomial. So I can't actually factor any further, so I am done. Okay? I don't have to do anything else. Number 6, you can always check for a GCF first, but what do you notice about this? How many terms do we have? We have 4 terms, so that means I can do factor by grouping, and I don't have to actually think about anything. So, factor by grouping. These two guys, the most I have in common is x squared. So I have 5x minus 2. Over here, I have, at most, negative 6. So I have negative 6 here, and then I have positive 5x minus 2. My parentheses indeed match, so we're good there. We have x squared minus 6. We have 5x minus 2. And those are our 2 factors. All right, that is it for factoring when a is greater than 1. Same process. Our numbers might be a little bit bigger, but the thing that we're going to forget to do is take out that GCF. So always check, do I have a GCF? You always want to ask yourself, do I have a GCF? Because if you don't take it out at the beginning, you're going to forget to do it at the end, and then your answer isn't technically factored all the way. So you make sure you always look for a GCF.